Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 87. Transaction. Gu wants to make a deal with you. This transaction, Gu is fairly certain you won't be able to refuse it. Who are you exactly? Come. Huanmo Palace has everything you want to know. While standing on the north bank of the Fei River 3 months ago, Chu's voice had echoed in Xiang Shu's mind. Flocks of crows filled the entire area, and like a tiger watching its prey, they covetously eyed the land west of Lujian. Here in this wide, open plain, as far as the eyes could see, the Qin troops occupied the northern side all the way on the horizon. 1.12 million people. Fujian had mobilized the entire country's strength, vowing to vanquish the south as proof that there was nothing he couldn't accomplish in this world. Yet at the southern side of the river, there was only a quiet, gloomy stronghold. Until the last minute, the Jin troops were still rushing to build fortifications. In front of Xiang Shu, a crow flew over and landed by the lower stream. Xiang Shu took off his outer garment and jumped into the water. His swimming ability was excellent. Back then, he basically floated just like water stripes in the waves in the rivers and lakes of Chi Chuan. The ice-cold water swept across his naked back, and that scene from 3 months ago appeared once more in front of Xiang Shu's eyes. The moment they arrived in the Yug, a veil of light spread to each and every corner with a buzzing sound. "I've finally found it," Wang Zi's clear voice sounded. Sure enough, this place can only be opened with the power of the Dragon Pearl. Caught off guard, Xiang Shu was brought over to a strange world. He tried to use the heart lamp's power with all his might, but it quickly dispersed, and he fell to the ground. In a low voice, he asked, "Wang Zi, is this your design?" This place was similar in a way to the world inside the yin-yang mirror. It had a circular white jade platform covered with strange glowing runes. Embedded in the center was the Taiji wheel inlaid with yin and yang symbols. Surrounding him on 4 corners, as if inside a painting, was a verdant landscape shrouded in cloud and mist. Wang Zi lowered his head and watched attentively at that high platform. He then stopped above the platform, Xiang Shu's broadsword in his hand. "Don't worry," Wang Zi said, tone indifferent. "Unless I forcibly remove the magical artifact supporting this place, the flow of time here is stagnant. Shulukong, let's talk." After receiving his sword back, Xiang Shu said in a deep voice, "At this point, there's no longer any chances for peace, Wang Zi." Slowly, Wang Zi descended and landed on the yin side of the Taiji wheel, while Xiang Shu stood on the yang side, looking around. "No need to worry. Don't break it and leave just yet," Wang Zi replied. "As I said, I can bring this crucial, final magical artifact with me, and you can leave this place without a hitch then." Xiang Shu said nothing, only staring at Wang Zi in silence. "Ah," Wang Zi murmured, 8 years ago, I saw you in front of the tent in Chi Chuan. At that time, you also gave me this kind of look." These words immediately aroused Xiang Shu's anger. The death of his father, Che Lufeng losing his life. All the way until now, the one responsible for the death of countless people was this man. Eyes that harbor suspicions. Wang Zi continued, "But 8 years ago, I hadn't known that you were the Dinghai Pearl. Strange, how could I be so stupid to make such a mistake?" In an instant, a loud boom seemingly exploded inside Xiang Shu's mind. It was as if he was struck by lightning, his hand holding the sword trembled non-stop. "What?" Xiang Shu said in disbelief. What did you say?" Subconsciously, Xiang Shu took out the pearl that had been snatched from Wang Zi from his chest. Wang Zi said, "That is called the Kang Lang Pearl. It was the dragon pearl left behind by the dragon that was your father's companion after your mother's Xiang family had suppressed it." "Xiang Shu," Wang Zi said, "looks like you still aren't aware of it, so saying father might not be appropriate at all. However, since you're the transformation of the dragon's internal core, the dragon power Zuyan has left in your body can be treated as a symbol left behind by your father. You Countless scenes flashed before Xiang Shu's eyes. The interaction he had with his parents during his childhood, his life in the prairie, the first time he learned how to ride a horse. What Wang Zi had just said a moment ago had already pierced his view of the world through and through. Nonsense! Xiang Shu was unable to hold back his anger any longer. He let out a shocking roar before readying his sword once more and rushing forward. Wang Zi, however, disappeared from the yin side of the Taiji wheel and reappeared on the yang side, swapping their positions. The two had exchanged positions all of a sudden. Xiang Shu deeply frowned and tried to invoke Chen Xing's heart lamp, wanting to end Wang Zi in one fell swoop. It's the dragon power, Wang Zi continued talking. About this dragon power, do you remember what I said when we met last time by the Hong Lake? I know everything you want to know. That left behind dragon power coursing through your meridians, Wang Zi smiled as he said, often makes you feel restless. There's a power inside your body that just wants to destroy and wreak havoc, am I right? It lets you become the best in the country, yet it also traps you and makes you suffer. When you're angry, you won't be able to hold back even towards people closest to you. Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu slowly calmed down. Wang Zi scrutinized him and continued, all these years, I've been looking for the Dinghai pearl all over the place. Only, I didn't expect that this most precious artifact between heaven and earth, one that has tremendous power to alter cause and effect, had been reborn, into a human. Xiang Shu looked around, eyes perplexed. Wang Zi said, let's make a deal, Shulukong. Fei River. In the dark of night, Xiang Shu followed the guidance of that crow as it flew neither too fast nor too slow over the water surface until he came upon a huge rock in the center of the river. The crow landed on the huge rock. A pitch-black cave entrance could be seen inside the swift current. In that location, there was a distributary, an underground channel branching off from the Fei River. It's underwater all along, no wonder I couldn't find it. Xiang Shu thought. He popped out of the water and took a deep breath before diving inside that dark, bottomless subterranean stream. At the end of the darkness, something appeared to be emitting light. It resembled the light that flashed across the whole area of Yuk region that day. I need you to do me a favor. Following his movement, Wang Zi also looked around at their surroundings, reminiscing. If we start talking about this from the beginning, it has already been 300 years since the last time I came to this place. Your mother and Zhonglu had intended to stay in this place and activate the timeless tide to travel back to the days long past. Fortunately, I stopped them. Let's just cut to the chase. Wang Zi turned serious and in a low voice, and he said, I can make sure you get whatever you want, you just need to do me a favor. Xiang Shu looked at Wang Zi with undivided attention. Send me back to 3,000 years ago, Wang Zi said, tone cold. Let me change my own destiny with my own hands, I want to become the new devil god. As long as you agree, I will teach you how to harness the power of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth within your body. Following that, you will. Xiang Shu lowered his sword and looked at Wang Zi skeptically before slowly moving towards him. Wang Zi smiled. Those you permit to live shall live, and those you wish to die will die. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth is all inside your body, and even the so-called devil god, that deity of war Chu, is no match for you. Of course, since you're a merciful and kind person, I believe you won't just kill people at random. Although, if you wish to lengthen the already not so long lifespan of that little friend of yours, you should not refuse this price. And then what? Xiang Shu asked. And then, you shall become a god of this mortal world. Wang Zi looked up at Xiang Shu, who was half a head taller than him, and said in a low voice, from then on, you will have all the time on this earth, a life without death. Xiang Shu looked at Wang Zi in full. Suddenly, his hand moved as fast as lightning, strangling Wang Zi's throat. At once, Wang Zi's eyes flashed out a black beam of light, engulfing both people with a loud rumble. Xiang Shu was hit by that shockwave of black. Qi immediately roared, yet his hand still firmly gripped Wang Zi, refusing to let go. With a speed so fast and relying solely on his own strength, he tightened his grip and would soon break Wang Zi's neck. Wang Zi immediately opened his folding fan and gestured with it. A loud boom ensued, and the entire magical array platform started to collapse. The earth veins soon emitted a bright blue light that swallowed the entire place, causing it to crumble. The runes, however, didn't plunge to the ground and instead flew out one by one. Xiang Shu's left hand was still strangling Wang Zi. With one move, his right hand folded and snatched Wang Zi's folding fan. "Your condition is pretty good," Xiang Shu said, tone icy. "But I want your life more to avenge my father and Anda." Xiang Shu's voice, amidst the resentment that soared to the sky, was laced with a vicious and imposing intent. It was like a dragon issuing a threat targeting the mortals, shaking both heaven and earth. In an instant, even heaven and earth all trembled before him. The illusionary space disappeared, shattering to pieces. Wang Zi exhausted all the resentment inside him to fight against Xiang Shu's dragon power but was thrown backward. On the crumbling platform, Xiang Shu swung his broadsword with one hand and used all his strength to charge, slashing down at Wang Zi. Fei River, dark of night. A few breaths later, it became bright all around. Xiang Shu left the water surface and stroked his wet hair as he observed the earth veins on the surrounding rock walls. The earth veins were on all sides and spread towards the depths of the secret passage, appearing similar to a massive tree's intertwined roots, and as he walked, these veins blazed in a red light, which became even brighter the deeper he went. By the time he arrived outside the underground, Dinghai karst cave, the whole cave had already been filled with earth veins glowing in blood-red light. In the center of the karst cave, a huge heart dangled, looking like some kind of blood vessel. The organ was emitting a black qi, and as it pulsated, the red light pervaded and illuminated everywhere inside the chamber. "You've come," Chu's voice echoed in his mind. "Dinghai pearl." The red light shone in a space between Xiang Shu's eyebrows. "As I said. Inside your body, Gu senses the breath of the dragon god." Silence befell the whole Huanmo palace. And then, there was a stranger standing just under that heart. "Wang Zi," Xiang Shu said in a low voice. "You're still alive." Wang Zi wanted to say something but kept hesitating. Chu's voice soon interrupted, "Don't mind him. After you took away one of his immortal souls, he has nearly wasted away." Xiang Shu raised his eyebrows as he looked at Wang Zi. The voice of Chu continued, "Wang Hai actually coveted Gu's army-killing power and even thought to invite you as a helping hand to seize Gu's body. Fortunately, you weren't convinced." At once, Wang Zi retreated behind the devil heart, shaking uncontrollably. Xiang Shu replied, "He couldn't negotiate any terms with me. However, you actually knew about it." Chu answered, "I understand the human race the most. Before I woke him up, he struggled, bitterly, in the dirt, though he's no more than a mere mortal." Xiang Shu walked in the direction of that huge heart while Wang Zi kept retreating. Chu's voice once again echoed, "That is what the Wisdom King handed over to you mortals, the Akala blade." In front of the heart, Xiang Shu tilted his head to glance at the sword on his back, not giving any reply. Chu said, "The legacy sword of Xuanyuan Shi, cast from the 6 primordial lights of the world, sunlight, moonbeam, starlight, lightning flash, blaze of flame, and luster of bone, combined with the bronze of the Shao mountain. You can try to use it to attack me, since that is the reason it was created in the first place. But, that sword will only wound, not kill me," Chu continued. "The present me is the proof that the Wisdom King and Xuanyuan Shi had the will but not the strength. It's precisely because other than the 6 primordial lights of the world, there is still another kind of light, which is none other than the light of Heart Hun. To be able to destroy me for good, you must first take the exorcist's life and refine his immortal and mortal souls together with the heart lamp into the sword," Chu stated. "This is the truth of the mission you're shouldering." Kill your beloved with your own hands to achieve the final shape of the sword. That is the only way you can truly be successful. Xiang Shu replied, but in that case, Chen Xing will have to die. The heart of Chou let out a burst of strange laughter. Correct. Naturally, you can also choose to pay no heed to this and abandon your destiny. In that case, a year from now, when Iupiter returns to heaven, the heart lamp will also be extinguished. Not everything in this world happens the way people wish it to be, yet they have their obsession. As long as heaven and earth rotate, obsession and dissatisfaction will never cease to exist. Now, Gu will give you another way out, Chu's voice echoed. Become Gu's new vessel. Live together with Gu in one body. If your Hun is strong enough to devour Gu's Hun, Gu will become you. If you can't resist, you will become Gu. Xiang Shu looked carefully at the heart of the devil and said in a low voice, Chu, for a vessel, you're willing to take such a risk. Chu replied, if Gu has a chance to be reborn anew in such a way, even if it comes with a possibility to allow you to have control, how could it not be worth it? Once you become aware of Gu's life experience, surely you will also make the same choice Gu did. Everyone knows that Yan Huang is the ancestor of the human race, yet nobody knows that Gu is also the ancestor of human beings. After the Battle of Bangkan, Gu's blood seeped into the entire divine land. For several millenniums, the spring water that mortals drink, the medicinal herb they take, the food they eat their whole lives, even their offerings for heaven and earth, they are all Gu's essence and blood. Gu has long assimilated with the divine land. Birds that fly and beasts that walk on the land, plants in both mountains and rivers, everything has Gu's will. Xuan Yuanshi killed Gu, but he also helped Gu accomplish everything. But, no matter who wins or loses in the end, Gu promises to change the cause and effect for you. Gu will go back 20 years ago to remove Iupiter, which had not yet intertwined with his fate then, from his natal chart. The companions you wish to save, Chu's voice continued, Gu will also eliminate the resentment inside their bodies and return them back to you. Xiang Shu replied, how can you guarantee you won't go back on your word? In a deep and low voice, Chu answered, Gu is a god of this world, and gods never go back on their words. In Gu's eyes, mortals are just ants, and all creatures between heaven and earth, in the end, are also Gu's descendants. Their obsession with life and death, their own unreconciliation and resentment. Gu understands more of their suffering compared to all of you. Wait until you have become Gu or have left behind your trace of mind inside Gu's body, and you will know. Come. Fujian is about to start a war, resentment is running wild, and the Dinghai pearl is about to be cultivated. Take out your magical artifacts and we can begin to prepare the 10,000 spirits array. Xiang Shu was still as silent as before. Chu finally said, Gu has no interest whatsoever in this current era of yours. Wait until the 10,000 spirits array has been completed, and after Gu has finished doing all these things for you, Gu will return to Bangkan 3,000 years ago. That is where Gu's battlefield is. Dinghai Pearl, what are you still worried about? To fuse with Gu and become the only god of this divine land for all eternity is the best ending for you. At last, Xiang Shu shook open the bundle he brought. The 6 magical artifacts, Kang Lang Pearl, Zhang Drum, Luahun Bell, White Tiger Pennant, Zuya Pennant and Tian Luo Fan, all flew in the direction of the huge heart, each emitting bright light. The Tian Luo Fan, just like before, will be in the possession of Wang Zi. You will be in charge of Luoyang's star of celestial balance, adding Sen Luo Wangxiang and Kangsheng Yuli, the 7 Po will be whole, Chu said. Wang Zi, wait until the resentment of the world is at its densest, then start the 10,000 spirits array to reshape Gu's body. Wang Zi stared at the Luahun bell, which contained faintly discernible glows of the Hun and Po, in a daze. South bank of the Fei River, 4th night period. Huan Yi and Xiexian went galloping at full speed to rendezvous with Xieyan who had been waiting outside the camp. Quickly, Chen Xing dismounted and said, where is Xiang Shu? Has anyone seen Xiang Shu? Xieyan replied, Marshal God Darren passed through the camp earlier. I don't know whether he crossed the river or not, but if he had, he must have gone to the Qin army's side. Chen Xing became anxious. Nobody followed him. Xia Yan shrugged and gave Huan Yi an inquiring look. Huan Yi didn't know what to do either. With the national disaster in front of them, he could only let Chen Xing figure out how to find someone on his own. Exorcist, please have a rest for a moment. Feel free to use the Commander-in-Chief's tent. I must give some advice for the battle. Forgive me for not being able to keep you company. You hurry along, BA, Chen Xing said. Xie Xian and Huan Yi discussed in a low voice, should we bring Chen Zianzhen to the battle? Huan Yi frowned. What do you think? Since Iupiter only blesses him, he's unbeatable, so is it possible to throw him out there to smash people? I heard that. Chen Xing said angrily from not far away. Wait until I find Xiang Shu, I'll teach you all a lesson. Xie Xian often heard that Chen Xing had the protection of Iupiter, turning his misfortune into a blessing. He brought him over to the Fei River also because of his luck. How about making him the commander-in-chief? If we let him ride head-on first to lead the Baifu army's charge, it may really cause the Qin army to fall into chaos and trample on each other. The people on their side will trample and kill their own people, ultimately leading to their army being totally beaten and completely collapsed. What's the scale of the chaos with over 1 million people in it? Perhaps Fujian himself might have been trampled to death first. However, this overly good situation was only wishful thinking. Huan Yi had set up an extensive defensive perimeter and sent scouts to monitor the situation. Xie Xian reined his mind and rushed to the commander's tent to attend the meeting. Chen Xing instead climbed the army's watchtower and blankly surveyed the pitch-black scene of the night from above. Where is Xiang Shu? Where exactly did he go? Chen Xing didn't know why, but he kept getting a sense of foreboding. He activated the heart lamp and offered it to the boundless curtain of night, but Xiang Shu didn't give any reply. He pressed one of his hands on his chest and once again lit it up, but still, there was no response from Xiang Shu. Go to the Qin camp and ask, Chen Xing said to himself. He became more and more worried about Xiang Shu. Since the moment they left Shaoyang for Fei River, it was as if the so-called connection between them that had grown over the past 3 years had been cut off. Before, even though Xiang Shu wasn't by his side, he could still feel the connection. At dawn, Chen Xing rode his horse, moving back and forth several times by the Fei River. On the other side was a vast expanse of whiteness. When Chen Xing went up to an elevation, he saw the Qin troops, which appeared similar to an ocean in the distance, on the plain and merging with the sky. Oh God, Chen Xing murmured, so many. Why are there so many people here? By contrast, the 100,000 Bifa troops on the south bank, which were lined up on the plain, were only several square formations. I can't tell whether they want to fight on the northern or southern shore, a voice sounded behind Chen Xing. You can't possibly want to charge at an army of 1.12 million people BA. Chen Xing whipped his head around when he heard the familiar gloomy voice. Riding on a horse and carrying a long saber with him, a man dressed in a black martial robe appeared behind Chen Xing. Mirong Chong. Chen Xing was shocked. End chapter. Dinghai Fusheng Records. Chapter 88. Tide. Mirong Chong knitted his brows. Keep your voice down. Do you want to alert all Jin people here? Chen Xing was about to dismount when Mirong Chong continued, don't. It'll be easier to move about on horse. Chen Xing could only say in his heart, fine, whatever you say. The two of them looked at each other for a moment. Mirong Chong asked, where's the great Chan Yu? Chen Xing shrugged, obviously, Mirong Chong had also come to find Xiang Shu. They then exchanged information with each other. After Mirong Chong left Luoyang, the Silver Cavalry had been completely incorporated into the army by Fujian, and just like that, he stepped into the road of fugitives. He first returned to the Xianbai's place, trying to persuade the ancient Gle covenant to once more join him. He had hoped that Shi Mokan could attack Fujian's rear during his expedition to the south, but this proposal was declined by the newly appointed Great Chanyu. It was plain to see that King Onobayashi wouldn't betray his own reputation either, so Murong Chong once again attempted to get in touch with Murong Chui. He had yet to see his uncle's face when he was betrayed and nearly got assassinated. He had practically experienced rhythmical ups and downs throughout the course of this journey. "What about you?" Murong Chong eventually asked. "I was in bed, I was in a coma for 3 months, Chen Xing finished explaining with just one sentence. Murong Chong. Chen Xing. The two looked at each other in silence. Chen Xing then said, "So, what are you doing here?" Murong Chong replied, "I'm thinking of taking advantage of the fight between the two Qin and Jin armies to sneak in and assassinate Fujian." Chen Xing probed, "You don't want to live on well, ma?" "I don't," Murong Chong answered. "My purpose of living on, is exactly to do this." Murong Chong gazed to a faraway place, his eyes carrying an indescribable flavor of loneliness. "I don't know where my older sister's body has gone to," Murong Chong said. "In the event where you find her." Murong Chong turned his horse's direction the other way, wanting to leave, before continuing, "Please help me cremate her. I have no idea where to look for her." "Wait," Chen Xing said. "Come with me." Chen Xing led Murong Chong to go around the back line of the Jin troops, as the Baifu army started moving to the rear. Xian had obviously trained them well, even when 100,000 people were pulling back at once, they actually still looked neat and orderly. Chen Xing stopped a man and asked, "What's happening?" General Xian accepted Fujian's request, the captain told them. "The whole army is now going to move back 10 li and let the Qin troops cross the river. The winner and loser will be determined in one battle." Sitting on their horses, Chen Xing and Murong Chong both turned their sights to the south bank of the Fei River. Voice faint, Murong Chong said, "How arrogant! If they're attacked midway during the crossing, they will undoubtedly suffer a great loss." "Very much like him," Chen Xing added. North bank of Fei River, Qin army battlefront. Fujian, the emperor's armor on his body and the emperor's sword at his waist, was on his horse as he stood by the shore. Fu Rong asked, "Your Majesty must not believe the Jin people. If we have not yet finished crossing the river when? Look at the great army behind you." Fujian didn't wait for Fu Rong to finish speaking as he heartlessly interrupted him. "Now look at this river." The crowd went solemn and silent. "This army of Gu's, even if you just throw a horsewhip into the Yangtze River, you'll still be able to cut off the current." Fujian said no more superfluous words and just shouted in a deep voice, "Cross the river." The Qin troops began to cross the river. Right at this moment, a thunderclap resounded all over the horizon, and chill wind billowed through as it swept across the Fei River. The water of the river seemingly transformed into a rapid current in an instant. It vaguely emitted a whiff of black qi that separately rushed towards both sides of the bank. Black clouds swirled on the skyline, and in just a split second, it concealed the scorching sun and turned the color of the sky dimmer and dimmer. The three commanders of the Jin army, Xie Xian, Huan Yi, and Xie Yan all looked up to the sky at the same time. "It's going to rain," Murong Chong said. "It'll be even more difficult to fight when it starts raining." "No," Chen Xing muttered. "This isn't rain, this is resentment. Where is it coming from?" "Inside the Huanmo Palace." Chu's voice said, "That Akala blade, you have no use for it anymore. Just give it to Gu." Xiang Shu was sitting cross-legged on the altar, the Akala blade resting horizontally on his knees. "What's the hurry?" In a deep voice, Xiang Shu replied. "This body will be yours sooner or later. What's the need to be afraid of a sword?" Chu coldly sneered. "That's true, you're merely afraid of Gu, fearing that Gu won't keep his promise. You will know very soon, once Gu's power has been restored to its original state, Gu shall become a deity that transcends both heaven and earth." Wang Zi. 10,000 spirits array. Wang Zi stood in front of the altar. Xiang Shu opened his eyes and looked at him. It actually made Wang Zi move back a little. Initiate they. 10,000 spirits arrays, Wang Zi said. My lord, there's not enough resentment yet. Before, the resentment preserved inside the Tianluo fan was used to forcefully refine the Kang Lang pearl and other things. Make do with it, the voice of Chu said. Start the array. Wang Zi released the boundless resentment wrapped around his body and launched it all towards the earth veins, then from within the earth veins, it all flowed away. Numerous red lights suddenly shot out from the devil's heart. In just a moment, both the resentment and the devil god's blood had trailed along the earth veins located between the divine land. They continued their spread, shooting in a rapid pace towards both ends northward and southward. Star of twinkling brilliance, northernmost land, Karasha Peak. The long scarf around Xiao Shan's neck was fluttering in the violent wind as he held Kangsheng Yuli in his hands. The resentment on the northern lands began to twist before turning into two vortexes that got sucked into each claw of Kangsheng Yuli. Xiao Shan pointed to the sky with one hand and to the ground with the other. The overflowing resentment following the last big battle that had filled the air of Karasha immediately gathered, transforming into a black pillar of light that soared straight into the horizon. Star of opener of heat, Karakoram. The stone tower seemed to react, and the magical artifact suppressed inside began to buzz. The tall figure of the Ghost King went through the tower, and ignoring everything, went in the direction of the Imperial Palace. The Chi-Le Covenant inhabitants who had migrated here all shouted loudly. They released arrow after arrow, and Shi Moken, who was leading the Tile warriors to block him in front of the palace, denounced him in the Tile language. The Ghost King held out his hand to activate the Luahun bell, resentment swirling around it. Dong! And at once, one hun of every person in Karakoram was taken away. The hun all turned into butterflies that went inside the bell to be kept. The Ghost King bowed once more, and a sword suddenly manifested, before turning into a black light figure that swept forward and chopped off Shi Moken's head. There was only silence now in Karakoram. The Ghost King entered the palace and pointed the Luahun bell towards the horizon. Immediately after that, a loud bang resounded on top of the Zionist palace. Its roof was pierced by a black pillar of light. Star of Jade Sighting Tube, Yin Mountain Summit, Obelisk Location. The rotting, corrupted huge wolf began to transform in the air and gradually turned into a young man with a scar from a sword spanning from the side of his face to the bone of his eyebrow. He held the white tiger pennant in his left hand while slowly stroking it with his right. His whole body burst out, producing a black light that shot into the horizon. Star of Celestial Balance, Luoyang. Wang Zi appeared in front of Mount Longmen and activated the Tianluo fan. At once, the resentment that hid the sky and covered the earth erupted as it gathered together into a black pillar of light, connecting the horizon above with the earth veins below. Star of Celestial Shining Pearl, Kuiji. Standing at the heights of the city gate, Feng Qianjun held up Sen Luo Wangxiang. He gathered all the resentment together in front of his body, and the blade shot out a black pillar of light that connected heaven and earth. Star of Celestial Rotating Jade, Longzhong Mountains. Sima Wei shook open the Zuya pennant, and black light shone out, connecting the sky with the land. Chang'an. Princess King He shook her sleeves and flew to the sky, her hand holding the Kang Lang pearl. The citizens of Chang'an were shaken at once and shouted, Yaogwai! The Yaogwai returns! The people of Chang'an had been scarred by the drought fiend outbreak that happened 2 years ago and were easily frightened by this occurrence. They ran away one after another, looking to escape. Yuan Xin led the scant few remaining imperial guards, all aiming arrows at the sky in a panic. Yuan Xin exclaimed, who is that? Princess King He activated the Kang Lang pearl and sneered. From the Kang Lang pearl, resentment strong enough to topple the mountains and overturn the seas was set free, destroying the imperial palace of Chang'an at once. And then, the resentment was drawn into one place in the center and went to pierce the roof and the ground of Jianzhong Palace with a loud bang. one end shot into the earth veins within the depths while the other shot towards the sky. In less than a brief moment, great changes visible to the naked eye had occurred throughout heaven and earth. Fei River was only one of many locations affected. 7 huge pillars of light connected to the sky appeared on the ground, and the giant wheel that spun throughout centuries as it revolved all around the world was now hindered. The divine land's true essence that had existed since the beginning of the world began to converge into those pillars of light. They transformed into specks of light that were absorbed by the resentment. As violent storms engulfed the area surrounding the pillars of light, the world gradually darkened. That darkness, which was so deep one couldn't even see the bottom of it, continued to converge, using the earth veins to keep circulating around in a rapid motion from the 7 locations of the 10,000 spirits array into the heart of Chu. The heart suddenly turned pitch black, blood and qi saturating it. Jiankong. Sima Yao was in the middle of offering a sacrifice to heaven when the sky changed. Headed by Xian, all civil and military officials went out in a flurry to observe the sky that had been obstructed by dark clouds. Xian's brow creased. "What's going on?" Wang Zizi quietly said, "Don't tell me something is happening in the Fei River Ba." In a deep voice, Sima Yao spoke, "This battle is a matter of life and death. Since these ministers are worried, come and pray together with Zhen Ba." Meanwhile, at the same time, on this battlefield where the light was nowhere to be seen, Fu Jian's grand army was already crossing the river. The raging wind was wreaking havoc, making sand fly and stones shift all over both shores, and the black qi in the Fei River became increasingly stronger and thicker. The soldiers all began to start chatting uneasily. "Cross the river." From the back line, a messenger channeled the command. "Speed up the process." "South bank. The wind is too strong." Huan Yi shouted. "How do we fight like this?" Xie Xian decisively said, "Start the battle." In just a short moment, the 3 commanders reached an agreement. This was their only opportunity, either fight or die. The Jin troops beat the war drum, and immediately, 3 drum beats that shook heaven and earth echoed forth. The stormy wind was shielding the sun as all of the world's accumulated resentment gathered together into a storm that advanced towards the Qin's backline as it converged, and those 100,000s of cavalry members, who were currently crossing the river, were the ones bearing the brunt of it. They were only able to see the xiao wind crazily blowing from the opposite shore. For a moment, they weren't able to distinguish anything in front of them. At the back of the Jin troops, Chen Xing immediately determined the direction where the resentment was flowing to and said, "It's on the opposite bank. Let's go with them. Don't go and throw your life away." On horseback, Murongchang suddenly grabbed Chen Xing's collar and softly whispered in his ear, "Unlike me, you have the great Chanyu. There's no need for you to die. Don't go there." Murongchang let go of Chen Xing before continuing, "I'll be going. See you in the next life, if there is one." The 3 beats of the drum ended. Attack the Jin troops, each holding a long halberd in their hand, launched an assault into the Fei River. Arrows filled both the sky and the land, the earth shook never-ending, and all other sounds grew muted. Then, Murongchang used both legs to squeeze his horse, brandishing a sword as he went inside a surging, powerful current of Jin troops that was caught in a life-or-death battle. Chen Xing looked at this scene in a daze. The Fei River was suddenly dyed red by blood. In the sky and in the earth, only darkness reigned. On this divine land, resentment raged and wreaked havoc, trees crashed down, raging and stormy waves surged up in the river, and shields flew over from afar. "This is very strange." Chen Xing then murmured, "Chu, where are you?" "Underground, Huanmo Palace." The resentment was engulfing everything, similar to an ink dyeing the source of power within the heaven and earth veins, turning it pitch black. It was flowing unhindered, injecting itself into that giant heart of the devil. Chu's voice then resounded. "I'm going to start refining you, Dinghai Pearl." Chu's devil heart released more and more layers of black qi, which surrounded Xiang Shu, and ignited all of his body in black fire. Exhaust all of your willpower and give your best effort to resist Ba, use the dragon power or even the heart lamp. At this moment, I am heaven and earth, I am the Dao. I know you're thinking of taking the sword in your hand to kill me when my guard is down. However, as long as I start removing your Hun, you won't have the power to struggle anymore. Xiang Shu was still sitting upright on the altar with both eyes closed, but when he heard these words, he suddenly opened his eyes. Yet, with a loud bang, both his Hun and Po were abruptly pierced by Chu's soul. In an instant, tendrils made of resentment penetrated deep into his mind, and the only thing he could do was to firmly grip the sword in his hand. In his heart, a spark of brilliance shone, guarding the last of his willpower. Xiang Shu. Chen Xing felt it at once. The sound of the massacre had deafened everything in this world to the point where he couldn't even hear his own words, all except that faint flash of the heart lamp in the distance. Xiang Shu. Chen Xing roared. What are you doing? Why didn't you wait for me? Chen Xing galloped down the hill and charged into the Fei River that was littered with corpses. The moment the Jin troops entered the river, they were met with strong resistance by the Qin army. Xie knew that this battle was either win or die, and there was absolutely no third possibility. Once the battle began, he pressed on with all available forces he had in hand. Chen Xing. Huan Yi suddenly spotted Chen Xing charging in on his horse. He yelled, "Don't go over there! You're mad!" Soldiers on both sides had already killed without restraint, their eyes turning bloodshot, while the Fei River had seemingly turned into a huge fiend that constantly swallowed soldiers from both parties. Chen Xing halted his horse in the south bank, only to hear a big rumble from a distance. The earth split open, and inside the whirlpool of black qi, a huge altar was lifted up. Huanmo Palace appeared on the world. The earth split open. The earth veins had turned pitch black and were moving to feed the heart on the altar. Fight Ba, Chu's voice said, fight until your last moment, that is your destiny. At once, the Qin troops were compelled by this resentment, they lost their rationality and began charging forward in spite of themselves. Nothing else matters, Chu's voice resonated in the world. Kill that exorcist. Within the billows of surging resentment, millions of Qin troops simultaneously launched a charge, crushing and pressing towards the south bank of the Fei River. Chen Xing eyed those overwhelming numbers of Qin troops. The Jin troops' front line had already been unable to hold them back, they divided themselves into two wings to avoid the other party's sharp advances. The Qin troops, like a surging tsunami that destroyed everything in its path, rushed straight at him. And then, Chen Xing lit up the heart lamp's gentle glow all over his body. Xiang Shu, I'm coming. Chen Xing faintly spoke. After saying so, he urged his warhorse towards the Qin army that was pressing down from the opposite bank in a manner similar to that of an angry ocean coming right at one's face, alone as he sailed against the current. That brilliance first lit up amidst the darkness, and then, on this battlefield filled with countless people, amidst the current of resentment, appearing like a shooting star on its trajectory trailing across the earth, that light resolutely charged straight into the rear of the enemy's line. Singer, Xiang Shu's voice sounded in Chen Xing's ears. Chen Xing's eyes opened wide. At this moment, the overflowing Qin troops who had been competitively trampling on everything were repeatedly overthrown under the illumination of the heart lamp's radiance. Xiang Shu said, "Go back." Chen Xing asked in a low voice, "What are you going to do?" Xiang Shu said, "Do you still remember that one thing you promised me?" Chen Xing snarled, "Xiang Shu! You bastard! You're killing Chu by yourself." Chu's voice produced a burst of laughter that shook the sky. "You'll be able to see each other again very soon." Inside that black fire, Xiang Shu's body started to constantly burn, his skin coming off. In the end, the Dinghai pearl finally showed up, flashing its last, final brilliance in Xiang Shu's chest. From inside that precious pearl, which now had resentment wrapped around it, came out a golden ring, and that wheel of time that moved both heaven and earth veins was slowly spinning inside the pearl. Chu said, "Take a good look. With the heaven and the earth as its great furnace, and 10,000 spirits acting as the raging fire, this epitome of all ages is about to be born in Gu's hands." The resentment continued to invade the Dinghai pearl, never once stopping, and dyed it pitch black. The pearl was first stained black by the ink-like resentment before it spread towards the ring as it continuously climbed. "Senior." Xiang Shu closed both of his eyes. His voice sounded in Chen Xing's mind, and his right hand, which was chapped and bleeding after it got burned by the black fire, was still tightly holding the Akala blade. Chen Xing no longer replied and just charged forward all the way. Suddenly, a white light flashed in front of his eyes, and countless memories flashed through his mind. In the dungeon in Xiangyang, a beam of light broke through the deep, boundless darkness. Xiang Shu, in his daze, looked at Chen Xing. His every corner was so hazy and unclear, and only Chen Xing, who was tightly holding both of his hands, had his face illuminated under that brilliance. Following that, more fragments flashed through. In the Longzhong mountain, Xiang Shu impatiently reprimanded Chen Xing. Chen Xing, however, just looked at him, laughing, and dragged him on while explaining in a low voice. On the street in Chang'an, Xiang Shu's expression was puzzled as he looked at Chen Xing, who showed great interest as he earnestly prayed. In the imperial palace, Chen Xing was muddle-headed and in a daze as he hugged Xiang Shu, who was standing by his side. Under the moon at night in Chi Le Chuan, Chen Xing couldn't help but take advantage of when Xiang Shu was not facing him to take a peek at his side profile. Xiang Shu's body had already been so close to turning into a pure soul. The gush of black qi bursting out from the devil heart had seeped into his 5 zhang and 6 fu, as well as his 3 hun and 7 po. Those glowing butterflies from his memory had already flown away out of his body one by one, fluttering in all directions. The black qi had almost completely eroded the Dinghai pearl, but, right at the moment it was about to thoroughly fall into the darkness, inside that rotating ring, in that core of the earth, a spark was ignited, a small yet bright fire burst out all around. "Singer," Xiang Shu softly said, "promise me, you will continue to live well." I won't," Chen Xing's tears flew down in all directions as he shouted angrily. "I won't promise that. Not a chance. Get out, you devil." Immediately after that, Chen Xing charged past those millions of Qin army's troops, transforming into a shooting star that drew out a brilliant trail amidst the darkness as he launched himself towards that altar. Chu was laughing like mad. "That faint spark na, do you really think you have the power to fight against Gu, this god?" Xiang Shu's body had been completely occupied by Chu. He was holding the sword in his left hand while his right hand was caressing the body of the blade. Its 9 runes were extinguished one by one, replaced by bursting black flame. Then, he calmly raised his hand, pointing the Akala blade at Chen Xing. The moment Chen Xing threw himself at him, his chest was immediately pierced by that broadsword, he was stabbed by it. Chen Xing was forced to be less than 1 qi away from Xiang Shu, with one hand glowing brightly. It illuminated Xiang Shu's handsome face, which blankly stared back at him, while his mouth began to gush out blood. Xiang Shu's voice had already merged with Chu. He concentrated on Chen Xing and laughed. "It, together with your death, will stop burning altogether. That small spark will forever never." But then, before the words finished leaving his mouth, Xiang Shu's eyes regained their clarity. "I knew you wouldn't be able to let me go, and that you would come." Xiang Shu's eyes carried a gentle, tender smile. Chen Xing said with much difficulty, "This time, isn't because of anything else, but because of you." "Give me the heart lamp," Xiang Shu spoke gently. In a split second, the light all over Chen Xing's body moved against the flow to the Akala blade. With a loud rumble, that broadsword radiated a strong brilliance and turned into an arrow, its arrowhead facing Xiang Shu. He then turned over his palm, reversing his grip on the weapon, and pierced his own chest with that arrowhead. There was a moment of stillness between heaven and earth. The bright light emitted from the arrow and hit the pitch-black Dinghai pearl, producing a ding sound. The Dinghai pearl inside Xiang Shu's chest sparked as if in response. Its light suddenly brightened as it radiated, making that golden ring regain its luster. Then, as the cracking sound on the outer pearl made by that Vajra arrow was heard, it again burst forth a speck of light. Cracks, which continued to spread all the way, appeared on the Dinghai pearl. At once, the heart of the devil issued a violent roar. Xiang Shu! Chen Xing blankly called. The Dinghai pearl shattered to pieces. A hurricane of spiritual qi swept across both the sky and the earth, covering everything, and outside that storm, mountains, rivers, lands, trees, mortals, even shattered weapons, the revival of all magic. Xiang Shu extended one of his hands, he grabbed Chen Xing's wrist and pulled him close, hugging him tightly to his chest. The two people were confined inside the violent wind. And then, the roar of a dragon echoed, surrounding both of them. Xiang Shu was sitting on the altar in a half-reclining and half-cross-legged posture. He looked like a dignified devil martial god who was protecting the divine land. He held Chen Xing in his arms, lowering his head and giving full attention to that red string strapped on Chen Xing's hand. "This is the last little bit of time we can be together," Xiang Shu said, voice soft. "I want to tell you, Xinger." "You?" Chen Xing said in a whisper, "Dinghai pearl." "You? How?" "That." Chen Xing's chest had been pierced through by the Akala blade. As soon as he tried to open his mouth to speak, blood gushed out like an endless stream, and the scene before his eyes gradually became blurry. Xiang Shu lowered his head and kissed Chen Xing's forehead. Suddenly, a light fragment of a star burst out of Chen Xing's body. It was revolving around, flying, though it looked as if it was unwilling to leave as it just circled around the two people. Xiang Shu then raised his head and looked at the horizon, his mouth reciting an incantation. The spiritual qi hurricane that erupted from the Dinghai pearl was all present around them. A gold-colored light aura surrounded the altar like a tide inside the vast, boundless azure sea, never shifting for thousands of years. Chu's immense figure showed up. The Hun and Po of the devil god tried his utmost to resist the hit of the spiritual qi. He madly confronted the hurricane, wanting to take back the body, roaring, preposterous. After Xiang Shu had finished reciting the incantation, new bright runes appeared all around his body. They gathered together, forming an ancient tidal array, and the Taiji wheel under the altar began to revolve. "What are you planning to do?" Chu's voice inside actually carried a hint of dread. Xiang Shu turned a blind eye to Chu. He only said to Chen Xing in his embrace, "Iupiter has already left you. You will live for a long, long time, and you will also find the one who will accompany you for a lifetime, that protector martial god." Chen Xing's eyes had gradually lost their brilliance. At this moment, Xiang Shu reached out into the chest of his own spiritual body to take out the tide ring. It was suspended midair in his almost transparent hand and began to revolve. Chu, who was instantly thrown out by that formidable, overwhelming vortex, let out a mad roar. The veins of heaven and earth were turning back. Chen Xing finally closed his eyes. Before him, there was only pitch-black darkness. Inside the darkness, "Wei," a young man's voice said. Chen Xing suddenly opened his eyes, only to find himself standing in the dark. "Where is this?" Chen Xing asked. "Am I dead? Where's Xiang Shu?" In front of him, a youth bathed in faint light appeared. However, that light was not that of the heart lamp. Instead, it was more like gentle starlight. That young man, who appeared to be the same age as Chen Xing, scratched his head as he said, "What should I say, any? I want to say goodbye to Ula. Who are you?" Chen Xing surveyed his surroundings before looking at the young man again. He realized in a flash and said, "You're Iupiter. All those times, it was you who were talking." That young man was extremely elegant, though it wasn't the same kind as Chen Xing's refined appearance, and his features carried an air of heroism. He smiled and said, "Yep, I was born of Kailan, the heaven's fourth star of destiny on duty. Bo, Zhong, Shu, Ji they call me Xiao Ji. I'm going to die," Chen Xing said. "So, you will have to go too." Xiao Ji replied. This matter is a little bit complicated. There was originally still a year left, but the Dinghai pearl unexpectedly stole away a year from me. So, what do I do any? Chen Xing said, "Hold on, I remember. Xiang Shu, he, is the Dinghai pearl." Xiao Ji didn't answer. He sized Chen Xing up, thinking of this and that. Chen Xing asked, "How about Chu? Is he dead?" Xiao Ji answered, "Can say he's dead, can also say he's not dead." Chen Xing. Xiao Ji smiled once more. "I truly hate to part with you any. You're a very brave mortal." Chen Xing immediately teared up a little, but since he was already in the form of a soul, no tears actually came out. "Thank you for taking care of me for so long, Xiao Ji. You won't have such good luck in the future." Xiao Ji spoke. "You also take care of yourself." "Oh, right. I just remembered, there's still another magical artifact." Chen Xing, "Well, I also won't remember it in my next life." "Go ba," Xiao Ji said. "Wait." When a flash appeared before Chen Xing, he exclaimed, "I still have questions." "You don't," Xiao Ji replied and poofed away before Chen Xing. In the rift of time, the giant wheel of time, which had been rotating for millennia, began to move in the opposite direction. From the heaven veins, thousands upon thousands of shooting stars burst out and flew towards the Earth's surface, while millions upon millions of souls rose up from the Earth and flew towards the horizon. The energy contained in both Earth and heaven veins, under the effect of spiritual qi, became interlinked with one another, before they were again swapped with each other. Under this intense pressure of the cause and effect, mountains and rivers shifted, the sun rose in the west and the moon set in the east, shifting at a flying speed. From the moment the Dinghai pearl had shattered and that hurricane of spiritual qi burst out, the amber pendant hanging down on Chen Xing's waist had come off. The amber was burned down by fire inside the strong gale, its red rope loose, and the ashes of the phoenix flashed a spark before scattering away. In this hurricane made of spiritual qi, the ring stopped rotating. The runes on the ancient tidal array began to disperse and finally faded away as Xiang Shu gently pushed the ring onto Chen Xing's finger. "I love you," Xiang Shu softly said, "Singer." The voice of the phoenix penetrated through from inside that hurricane. Xiang Shu suddenly raised his head. The phoenix shook open its blazing wings, which were wide enough to obscure the sky, and hovered around the hurricane. Carrying sacred flame that burned everything yet also made all things be reborn anew thereafter, it revolved around Xiang Shu, sprinkling powders of light akin to the luminous band of light, the Milky Way. After one full circle, the flame stopped in a neat manner. In an instant, the raging flame of rebirth gathered at flying speed towards Xiang Shu. A loud boom ensued, Xiang Shu's body burned in flames, and the light powders congregated, as if there was a flame deity in the middle of the altar. "I've troubled you." That starlight that rotated around the altar began to transform, revealing a young man who was raising his hand. "What?" Xiang Shu was puzzled. "Not you," Xiao Ji said. "Bell, come out." A moment later, the Luohun bell appeared in Xiao Ji's hand. With a dong, Xiang Shu and Chen Xing's whole bodies shook, and from each of their bodies, a butterfly emitting a blue light flew out. At the same time, 3 glowing butterflies also flew in from some place, before then scattering. Xiao Ji spread his arms in the air, his body turning into a speck of starlight as he flew towards the horizon. All the scenes inside this rift of time, like burnt pieces of paper, began to scatter away. Finally, they faded and disappeared without a trace. He's not immortal. Dragon power flows in his 307 Po, and just like the power of a phoenix, it will reject memories of the past. I don't think it's feasible. After the phoenix finished speaking, it flapped its wings and flew away. Inside the darkness. Farewell, Xiaoji's voice softly said. I'm going home. Thank you all for undoing this shackle called the silence of all magic. Otherwise, I would have been trapped in this world for a long time. Tianqi, I'll miss you. Wait Chen Xing said. Xiaoji. I uppeter. Wei. Come back here. I'm not in a rush to reincarnate. What are you running so fast for? Chen Xing was walking in large strides inside the darkness when he suddenly realized something. Amidst the pitch-black scene in front of his eyes, there was a flickering glimmer of light in the distance. A butterfly was revolving around him, it circled him before entering his body. It was kind of a strange feeling. His hands, feet and six senses had seemingly returned, yet before his eyes, there was still only darkness, and he couldn't see anything. I'm not dead? Chen Xing lifted his hands, touching all over the place in confusion. He then muttered to himself, where is this? The dungeon, behind him, Zhu Su gave a reply. End chapter.